Like and subscribe right now, or else this will be in your bed tonight. r/AskReddit by Wallety. What is more dangerous than people think? Loud noise exposure. There's no cure for tinnitus, hyperacusis and hearing loss. Younger me thought that this was BS from boomers, so we turned down the music. Besides, we've got hearing aids to help with that. No, if you hear buzzing in your ear, it's now there forever, and no amount of money or technology can make it even a tiny bit better. Melatonin works okay for some types of tinnitus. It's not great, but it is a treatment. Conclusions. Melatonin is associated with a statistically significant decrease in tinnitus intensity and improved sleep quality in patients with chronic tinnitus. Melatonin is most effective in men, those without a history of depression, those who have not undergone prior tinnitus treatments, those with more severe and bilateral tinnitus, and those with a history of noise exposure. Melatonin. Can it stop the ringing? I always thought that I was a smart kid and was listening to everything at an okay volume with my earbuds. But then I started to hear a constant ringing around middle high school. It freaked me out because it wouldn't stop, and I used to think it was the TV or something else. And now I'll never experience silence ever again. Steam. I work in power plants. Not scared of anything else I'm around. And I use explosives for work. But steam. And boilers. The one in my elementary school exploded, and the local newspaper said probably 60 kids would have died if it happened during school. I got a claim at work where a sailor witnessed another sailor get cooked alive when the boiler he was cleaning accidentally got turned on. My grandfather worked at a foundry. They were dumping metal in a mold and he heard a god now eat then loud screams for 10 seconds before complete silence as everyone came to a standstill. A cleaner was still in there. He apparently skipped doing it earlier to take a smoke and beer break for an early lunch, figuring he'd do it later and no one would know. He marked it as done. He burned to death in molten metal. Hiking by yourself. Seriously, last year, a guy I grew up with disappeared. The local area has numerous hiking spots, some that can be a bit dicey. Long story short, he fell and died. The saddest part was he obviously was knocked unconscious or died instantly, because he was only a 5-10 minute hike from the nearest access point road, and he did have his phone on him. Still, he wasn't found for days when he was missing. Be safe out there, folks. You don't need to be in the middle of nowhere to have a fatal accident. There's a park near Colorado Springs where they strap a GPS locator on your wrist before you can go hiking, mountain climbing. It saves the rescue teams a shitload of time and trouble. 20-30 years ago, a bunch of Coloradans went backcountry skiing when there were avalanche warnings. The leader said he could get them through it. They were trapped by an avalanche and the state spent thousands of dollars to rescue them. It even got into People magazine. I think the skiers thought they were brave survivors, but other Coloradans, including me, were enraged that they wasted so much money and endangered the rescue crew after they had been told not to go skiing. They coughed up some money to repay the crew. Hydraulic systems. 3000C hydraulics won't even hesitate to remove your limbs. Adding to that, a leak at a hose under pressure can result in a nearly invisible 5,000 to 10,000 pound spray of hydraulic fluid depending on the application. It can punch straight through flesh and tends to follow bones when it gets inside. It's corrosive, so you can't just leave it. Everything it touches has to be irrigated. This can include cutting along the path of the injection injury, opening the wound, and spraying it out with saline solution. Needless to say, if you have to have that done, recovery takes a while. Not getting it done will mean your tissue being destroyed and potentially losing the affected body parts. In the Navy, we were always told a legend of a guy who tried to stop a hydraulic leak with his finger and pumped his arm full of hydraulic fluid. I was in a rescue unit. We didn't have an anecdote, just knowledge of it and a couple of engineers saying, "Yep, uck with that and you'll wish it cut the limb off instead." Cows. Cows kill a lot of people each year compared to the scary animals. I lived next to a small cow farm growing up. 99.9% of the time they were docile and sweet and you could go right up to the fence and feed them. But just one time I saw the bull get actually mad, not posturing and showing off for his ladies, and he cracked the fence post we were standing on the other side of. We stopped feeding the cows for a while after that. My dad had one lean into him when he was shoveling shit when he was a kid. It was crushing him into a wall with its weight. His buddy had to crack the cow on the head with a shovel to get it moving. I hear it was a mean-spirited bull at times. They had a small dog that would get it into the barn by chasing and biting at its nutsack. You know, if anything would make me a mean-spirited person, a dog nipping at my balls would do it. Cheerleading. People get a ton of injuries doing that. Apparently throwing people around and stacking them on top of each other is not always a good idea. From what I've heard from people who used to cheer, it's not considered a sport, so that school don't have to spend money on the safety equipment they should be using, which makes it so dangerous. Two 200lb boys knocking into each other need safety gear, but a 95-pound fly landing headfirst in a gym floor is fine because it's not a sport. I cheerleaded in middle school and we weren't allowed to do any tumbling for this reason. We only did cheer and dance, which at the time was a bummer, but I think this should be the rule for all underage cheerleaders. A girl I went to high school with got an orbital fracture from a catch going wrong and the other girl's elbow smacking down on her eye. I haven't heard of that happening in any other high school sport. Not getting enough sleep. I went through a period of bad insomnia, like no more than 1 hour a night if I was lucky enough to even get that. I couldn't even function. It literally felt like I was going insane. I couldn't sleep for several days while visiting my family, and on the way back home I was sitting on the airplane wondering why I was flying to that city. It took me several seconds to remember that I lived there. In the end I decided that I had been not dead tired when I bought the plane tickets, so it was probably okay. Still scary. It felt like I was drunk and befuddled. Same. Then every single person I knew insisted I try sleepy time tea to cure me. Pregnancy and giving birth. When you learn how many ways being pregnant can kill you, it makes you realize how much of a miracle it is that our species has survived. This is exactly why I'll never change my mind that pregnancy should be 100% voluntary and not forced via legislation. There are many ways pregnancy can kill you or cause negative lifelong issues. People should have the option to not go through that. Thank you. This is my take. 2. Whether or not what grows inside of us is technically a human is besides the point. The reality is that no person should be made to risk their life for another. Join our community Discord, link in description. Burning PVC. If someone throws some old PVC siding, the fake plastic stuff they put on houses, into a fire, if you inhale the smoke and gas, your lungs are ruined and you are pretty much a dead man. Burning plastics in general emits nasty thick black smoke that is full of harmful carcinogens. 2-3 breaths of it will make you unconscious. You can gather quite a bit of information about a fire from the smoke. Please check your smoke alarms, people. They save lives. Also, PVC fragments don't show up on X-rays, so if you are working with pressurized PVC, potato cannon perhaps, and the thing ruptures, you now have lots of shrapnel in you that cannot be easily found. One of the stupidest things I did when I was around 5'8" old, I thought I could make a pipe to smoke, so I got a 18 inches length of PVC that was maybe 1/2 inch wide and lit the end on fire and then put the non-burning end up to my mouth and inhaled the black burning gas. My lungs quit working and I couldn't breathe, so I panicked and dropped the pipe and ran about 30 yards to go inside my house, hoping my parents could help me. Right as I got to the door, my lungs started working and I took a breath. I never told my parents. I don't have any lung issues that I'm aware of and I'm 35 now. Again, one of the stupidest things I did as a kid. Electricity. You can't see it. You can't smell it. You can't hear it. But that mother-ucker can kill you. I learned that the hard way when I was a kid. Now as a grown behind adult, I stay the yuck away from anything that could put me in close or direct contact with electricity. You can't smell electricity. However, when electricity forms plasma arcs or burns material, it oftentimes creates ozone, which has a very distinct smell that I can best describe as burning electrical smell. And if you smell it, it's probably a good idea to figure out where it's coming from before too late. That smell put me in max alert every time. Back in the day, I had one of those plasma orbs, and I found out if you put metal on the surface of the orb, it will arc to other metal in your body. So I got busy causing arcs to go through the paper, and I learned that the burning smell was different than just burning paper. I also found out that the arc will also go through fingernail. You do not want to arc electricity through your fingernail. Garage door springs. The spring is under constant tension. A sudden failure can cause the spring to break apart violently. Came to say this. Those springs are scary. Hire someone to replace your garage door. Really? My boss had one break and put a freaking hole in his trunk and bust his back window. Imagine what that would do to your face. When I was a kid around 13, I changed the garage spring with my dad, and only halfway through the process did he tell me that if I messed up and let go of the metal tube holding the spring that we would probably both die. Should have given me a fucking warning beforehand, dad. Minor impact on the calves, like missing a step. Tore an Achilles this way. Listen, if you feel like you kinda pulled your calf, please get that checked out. Don't be an idiot, like me, and think it's general soreness and continue running improperly, which is how it got pulled to begin with, or working out. I ended spending 14 weeks doing physical therapy, developed plantar fasciitis in both feet, and still to this day have pain while walking up steep hills or down multiple flights of stairs. It's been about 4 years now. Take care of your calves. This seems like a stupid answer, but black bears. For some reason people associate black bears with being timid and safe to be around. Sure, they are less aggressive than a grizzly or polar bear, but they are still bears and should be avoided when possible. I used to live in an area that had an abundance of black bears and seasonal tourists. I have had to tell people that the bears aren't nice and to keep their kids away. Feeding bears is a huge no, but people do that too. Stupidly associating themselves as a food source. This is not a stupid answer. You know how they tell you to play dead if a grizzly attacks you? That's because grizzlies don't typically view humans as prey. If one attacks, it's almost certainly a mother defending its cubs, and will move away if it stops perceiving you as a threat. This is not so with black bears, who are extremely opportunistic omnivores. If a black bear attacks you, there's a good chance it wants to eat you. And a black bear that wants to eat you absolutely will not stop trying to eat you until it is shitting you out the next morning. Playing dead will only make it easier for the bear to have dinner. You fight the tucker with everything you have. If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down. If it's white, good night. I was literally saying this exact thing just a few hours ago to a couple of Americans who were asking me about the polar bears up here. Funny how something random like this pops up in a thread I'm scrolling through. Horse riding. Actually handling a moody 500 kilograms animal can easily lead you to broken bones. In this sport we all know some people who will spend their life in a wheelchair. I was riding with my family when I was 12. We were a ride for fun horseback riding family. Something spooked the horse and it threw me off into a fence and I barely escaped with my life. 2 months in the ICU with fractured spine, collapsed lung, ruptured spleen, concussion, stitches, and other injuries. I was wearing a helmet and had training. Definitely dangerous when it goes wrong. I heard the best way to make sure a horse won't hurt you is to quietly approach it from behind and pinch it really hard on the butt. He will respect your stealth and courage, or kick you in the chest so hard your ribs come out your back. I think a lot of it though is riders normalize foolishness beyond the basic caution due large prey animals. My trainer and I thought it was hilarious when a horse I was showing tried to go up and back at X because he was offended by the ring being sloppy. My husband was, probably justifiably, horrified. A little bit of floodwater covering the road. Hydroplaning is scary. In college, my roommate, a few people from my floor and I went out for dinner. It was pouring. I was driving my little car and we came to a spot that you couldn't tell was covered in water. We started hydroplaning. I stayed calm somehow. Every other person in my car started screaming their heads off. They couldn't believe I stayed calm through it all. Best part is we got back to campus, I dropped them off in front of the dorm and then went to find a parking spot. On my walk alone back to the dorm I fell down the hill and got a concussion. Again, calm as can be. Walked into my room covered in mud and soaking wet. They're all freaking out and I'm acting like it's any old day. Like and subscribe for good luck.